Welcome to Paranormal Nightshift, the place where shadows aren't just cast by light, but by memory, where the veil between past and present, the living and the beyond, is thinner than you think. This is where your stories come alive, and sometimes don't want to go back to sleep. I'm your host, Gideon, here to guide you through the strange, the unsettling, and the truly unforgettable. Week after week, brave listeners just like you open the door to the unexplainable, and we walk in together. Before we settle into tonight's tale, I've got something special for all you midnight travelers. Head over to paranormalnightshift.com and claim your free copy of The Birth of Dimensional Desperado, the first ebook in our original time-warping paranormal series. If you haven't met Buck Shadow Sheriff Freeman yet, now's your chance. This ghost-hardened cowboy walks through timelines and hunts the haunted, and his journey starts right there. Don't miss out. But now, let's return to the darkness. Tonight's story comes from one of our listeners, Jason, and it begins in a quiet rural village in Pennsylvania. Just the kind of place where nothing ever seems to happen until something does. An old trailer, a porch, a harmless rocking chair, and a moment of movement that may have invited something in. This is the rocking chair. When I was a boy, some of my best memories came from spending time at my grandmother's place, a little trailer nestled in a quiet village in rural Pennsylvania. It was one of those towns where the air always seemed fresher, the nights quieter, and time moved just a bit slower. Her trailer sat at the edge of a wooded patch, and just a stone's throw from her back steps was a stream that babbled year-round, with a small waterfall that made the most peaceful sound you'd ever heard. It was the kind of place where you might see two cars drive by in an entire day, one of which was always the mailman. The rest of the time, just birdsong, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional snap of a twig when a deer wandered too close to the fence line. I loved it there, still do. Years passed as they did, and when my grandmother's health began to decline in her early 90s, she had to move into a nursing home. With the family scattered and most folks too busy to manage the place, I offered to move in and take care of the property for her. It felt like the right thing to do, and honestly, the idea of returning to that slower pace called to me. The inside of the trailer hadn't changed in decades. It was filled wall to wall with old furniture, family photos, handmade doilies, and little knickknacks that seemed to have stories of their own. But one thing that always stood out was an old wooden rocking chair, which sat unused in the corner of the living room near the big window that faced the yard. When I settled in, I started making small changes, cleaning up, shifting furniture around, and trying to make it feel more like my space. That's when I decided to move the rocking chair onto the covered porch. It felt like the kind of thing you should do with a chair like that, especially in a place where you could sit and watch the rain hit the hills or the sun rise over the trees. It was a rainy afternoon when a good buddy of mine stopped by to catch up. He brought along his wife and their little girl, who couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 years old. I was still smoking at the time, and out of respect for my grandmother's strict no smoking inside rule, we all headed out to the porch. We stood out there for about 40 minutes, puffing on our cigarettes, swapping stories, watching the rain tap the roof. The toddler was getting restless, as toddlers do, whining and pulling at her mom's pant leg. To keep her entertained, I placed my foot on the rail of the rocking chair and started gently rocking it back and forth. Just a little movement. I wasn't really thinking about it, just trying to keep the kid occupied. That's when my buddy turned to me, his expression suddenly very serious. "Are you out of your mind?" he asked. I laughed, thinking he was joking. "What? That's bad luck, man," he said. "You're not supposed to do that. Rock an empty chair. It's like inviting something in." I raised an eyebrow. "You've been watching too many scary movies." But he shook his head and told me about an old wives' tale, never rock an empty chair. The legend goes if you do, the next person who sits in it will die. I made a joke, of course. I've never been one for superstition. Grew up around them, sure, but never paid them much mind. We moved on and talked about other things. The rain continued, and after a while his daughter got fussy again. To soothe her, my buddy scooped her up and, you guessed it, sat down in the rocking chair. She calmed down instantly. We all chuckled. Moments later they said their goodbyes and headed home. I thought nothing of it. A week later, the phone rang. It was his wife. She was sobbing, barely able to get the words out. My buddy had suffered a massive heart attack. He was in his mid-30s, healthy, active, no warning signs. He was gone. Gone. I sat in stunned silence, clutching the receiver, my mind racing back to the porch, to the rain, to the way the chair creaked under his weight, to the moment I rocked it. No, it couldn't be. That's ridiculous. But I couldn't shake it. I walked out onto the porch that same day. The chair was still there, sitting still in the corner, like it hadn't moved since he left. I stared at it for what felt like an hour, every memory of that day echoing in my head. Winter came and went. I spent most of it indoors, watching the snowfall outside that same window. When spring arrived, I made a decision. I didn't want that chair anymore. I didn't know if it was cursed, if it was haunted, or if it was all just coincidence, but something wasn't right about it. I didn't want it in my home. So one mild April afternoon, I carefully lifted it and carried it down the gravel path to the edge of the driveway. I set it near the ditch line and went back to mowing the yard, figuring someone might pick it up. Or maybe not. I didn't care. About an hour later, I was cutting the back stretch of the lawn when I saw them, a young couple walking up the road. That alone was odd. Even in modern times, foot traffic around here was rare. I hadn't seen them before, and I haven't seen them since. The man walked right up to the chair. He gave it a little push, just enough to make it rock. My blood went cold. He turned to his girlfriend and grinned. Then, before I could even get the mower shut off, he sat down in it. I was halfway across the yard, waving my arms. "Wait! Hey, don't!" He looked over, smiling. "I've been looking for one just like this. How much do you want for it?" I didn't even hesitate. "Take it. It's yours." He nodded, picked it up like it weighed nothing, and the two of them walked off, back down the road in the same direction they'd come from. I stood there for a long time, watching the rocking chair disappear into the distance. I don't know what happened to that couple. I don't know what happened to the chair. I never saw them again, and that exact chair has never turned up anywhere nearby, as far as I can tell. But I've never forgotten that day, or the look on my buddy's face when he warned me. Maybe it's just a story. Maybe it's just a coincidence. But I'll tell you this, I will never, ever rock an empty rocking chair again. Not even once. And that wraps up this chilling journey into the unknown. Jason, thank you for sharing your incredible story. The rocking chair reminds us that sometimes the most unassuming objects, things we pass by without a second thought, can carry echoes of something much older, much darker, and far less willing to be forgotten. A gentle nudge, an empty seat, and suddenly you're not so alone anymore. If tonight's tale made you glance twice at your furniture, or stirred up memories you thought were long buried, consider supporting the show. You can join us on Patreon for an ad-free experience, early access to episodes, and exclusive bonus content, including the continuing adventures of Buck Shadow Sheriff Freeman in the Dimensional Desperado series. Our Patreon members keep this haunted train rolling, and trust me, the next stop gets even stranger. Not ready to hop on the Patreon wagon just yet? No worries. You can still help us out by subscribing on Spotify and YouTube and leaving a comment to let us know what you thought about Jason's story. Ever heard an empty chair creak when no one was around? Ever seen something walk away with an object you never saw again? We want to hear it. And don't forget to grab your free ebook at paranormalnightshift.com. The Birth of Dimensional Desperado is waiting for you, and Buck Freeman's Ghost Forge journey into haunted timelines is just getting started. Lastly, if you've had a run-in with the unexplained, whether it creaked, whispered, or watched from the shadows, share it with us. Head over to paranormalnightshift.com and submit your story. Who knows? Yours could be the next one keeping listeners up at night. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and remember, never rock an empty chair, especially if you're alone.